let's take a look at some of my favorite maps, maybe learn a few tricks and get inspired to do some world building. Alright, let's kick this off with a map that I look at all the time, maybe more than any other map. It is the ThunderCats Third Earth. Now, I don't remember this map from my childhood. I just saw this picture on Twitter. It's a map from the inside of the ThunderCats action figure case thing. And I just think this illustration is so rad. You know, this map as a world doesn't really make much sense, but it's a fantasy map. You know, you've got the Great Void right next to the Gardens of Delight. The Geyser of Life is right next to the bottomless chasm of laser beasts. Really, it's just a bunch of the locations from the cartoon crammed together on a map, but the illustration is so nice and just all this fun color. You know, maps like these really, it just makes me want to explore this world. The combination of interesting locations and weird names for those places, it just gets my imagination going, like, what kind of adventures would you have in the Fire Tree Forest or in the home of the Vortex? So cool. I love this map. And this kind of approach to map making makes me think of my pal Kyle Latino, has the YouTube channel Map Crow. He has a great video about making maps with gameable locations. I'll put a link to that down in the description, along with all of the other stuff I'm talking about in this video. And Kyle makes really awesome maps. I'm envious of Kyle's drawing style because he makes things look effortless and sketchy in like the best way. I feel like I have to really carefully plan out my maps and make sure everything is in place and I know exactly how to draw everything before I draw it. But Kyle has this confidence to his drawing style, this sketchy quality, and it's almost like he has discovered the locations by just drawing the actual map you're looking at. I'm flipping through this Old Road zine, which I think he's reprinting soon, and it's filled with these isometric maps. They aren't exactly battle maps, but more like fun areas to explore. And I think if you're using these maps in a TTRPG, you'd almost be able to run your game just by looking at these maps. Like the ThunderCats map, each of these locations is just filled with interesting details and fun stuff to look at. And instead of spelling out what is going on at each location, Kyle just has a list of rumors and hooks to get you started, get your imagination going when looking at each of these maps. Now, speaking of maps that you could run your game right off of, this Dungeon 23 project by Francois Licata is absolutely amazing. Each dungeon room has a trap or a monster. Everything's illustrated in this awesome, gritty, grimy style. Like, check out this mechanical hand statue that's rolling these columns down this ramp. Like, perfect trap right there on the map, ready to explain to the players that stumble into it. The dungeon winds around and links back and splits away from each other, and the perspective's all weird, but it's all really clear how everything connects and works. This Devil's Hand dungeon has like 52 rooms. I feel like I could spend an hour just poring over all of the little details of this map. But if you download it on itch, it also comes with a description of what's going on in each room, and you could totally run it like a normal monster and trap infested dungeon. Now, I learn a lot just by looking at other people's maps, spending time studying them, and I'll definitely be making more videos about how to draw maps on this channel. But I also think it would be super fun to make a video where I review your map drawings. I think there's a lot we can actually learn from that. So if you'd like an honest critique of your map on the channel, send me an email with a good photo or scan of your map and use the title Review My Map. You can find my email on my website. Okay, next up, let's look at Gnarled Monsters Beyond the Borderlands zines. There's 2 of them out so far, and these things are filled with tons of these isometric hex maps that are just doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And what I mean is, like, in the second zine, you can see that each of these dungeon maps that are like 10 to 12 rooms are on a 2-page spread. All the locations are explained, there's encounters and treasure. All the information you need to run this dungeon is right there, and a lot of it comes from just looking at the map. And it all works because these maps are so wonderfully thought out and illustrated. These might also be my favorite because the scale and the color and the perspective, kind of all of the illustration just reminds me so much of A Link to the Past. And while the maps in that game weren't really isometric, they weren't hexagonal in any way either, it just, the feel of these maps just reminds me so much of that in the best way. And the other thing that I think is just so cool about the maps in these two zines is how they all connect and seed into each other. So if we start in the first zine, there is the hex map of the world to explore, the wicked Palo Valley. Then you can zoom in, get a little more detailed with the region, like the Scarlet Forest. Then when the players move into hex 5-2, the Bloody Ravine, you jump into the second zine and it gets even more detailed. And look at all the locations on this hex. There's the Chaos Temple, the Bugbear Quarters, the Goblin Caves. All of these dungeons have their own maps that zoom in even more, get even more detailed, and it's just such a fun way to build a world. And that reminds me of another one of my favorite maps by Neil's RPG Tunes. This is the world map of Heimlin. It's just a sketch of this world that Niels and his wife Rose have created for their Patreon, and I just love this style. It's so clean and simple, but there's still enough detail and interest in the icons and locations that make you want to explore this place. And because the map is so simple, you might be fooled into thinking that this world isn't very big, but it's big. And there is a lot going on in Heimlin. So check this out. See this little silver spires icon, the city silver spires? That zooms into this map, this huge fantasy city. And you can see all of the locations in the city have more detail to them. There's also the chain of Seasong Islands down here. They get zoomed into even more. These are just a couple of the islands that make up this one little spot on the bigger map. It's just so awesome. It's kind of the opposite way that people tell you to world build by, like, starting zoomed out and then get more and more detailed. You should start small and then get big. But I can't deny how magical it is just to see this huge world and then know how much more detailed it gets the more you explore it. Like I said, Niels and Rose have a wonderful Patreon where each month they release quest packs that detail all of these locations in the world, and they have campaigns that are set over all of these different locations. Really awesome stuff. Okay, now let's talk about the Shire. This is mapped by Francesco Mattioli. It comes with the One Ring starter set. It's huge, it's beautiful, and I think there's just something to be said about having a really big map. You know, it's one thing to look at a map on a screen or in a zine or a book that's, like 8.5 by 11, but having a huge, big map that you can hold in your hands is just, it feels special. Like, handing this to your players at the table at the start of the adventure would feel so cool. Now, as far as the art goes on this map, it's amazing. Like, the color and the line work, all of it, like, it just looks peaceful, which is kind of the point of the Shire. The scale of this map, like the scale of the world as it's presented in the illustration of the map, is a little more accurate than a lot of the other maps we've been looking at. But at the same time, it still has embellishments of the little towns, and there's even the little hobbit decoration on the scale marker. It has these inlays that, you get a closer look at Hobbiton and some of the important locations. And just like Kyle's map, it has this sort of sketchy, confident quality to it, but this map is much softer. The lines are thinner and there's way more negative space, which just feels natural for a place like the Shire. It reinforces the openness and the scale of the Shire. Like, these little hobbit people can't possibly fill up this beautiful, big, idyllic place. I guess I'm just realizing that all of these maps are of places that I would love to visit and explore, and I think that's the main goal of a fantasy map, is to create a world that you want to pore over and look at every little detail and discover all the amazing things going on in these crazy, fantastical places. Now, on the complete opposite end of the Shire, we have The Vaults of Varn by Leo Hunt. This is an RPG about a dying blue desert world that's filled with mutants and strange technology. It's a really, really cool setting, and there's some cool maps in this book. But the one I want to show you is this third-party program, sort of website add-on called the Varn Atlas. It's by Jacob Marks. It's just this awesome website. It just runs right from your browser, from itch.io. Really simple, randomized pixel art, I guess, point crawl map. It basically just creates the whole adventure for you, creates a map, all of the encounters, all of the locations in this awesome pixel art style with one click of a button. It uses all of the tables and NPCs and monsters straight from the book. It shows the distances between the locations, who inhabits each place, and there's even like different landscapes and stuff in this blue desert, like crystal growths and toxic lakes. It's just so thematically cool. Like, it just feels right to have this scratchy 8-bit program map thing for this dying futuristic world that explains what's going on in this ruined technological future. And what I think is really cool is that even though these maps don't have the big evocative illustrations of these locations, it's still super gameable, and it still makes me want to explore this weird blue desert just as much as the other maps. So yeah, those are just a few of my favorite maps. I have many more maps that I could talk about, so if you like this video, let me know and I can make more. If you'd like to learn how to draw your own maps, subscribe to the channel and check out my other videos. And if you'd like to support me and the channel, check out my online shop where you can get adventures that have lots of illustrations and maps and stuff, or you can join my Patreon where I release those adventures and guidebooks every month. Again, there's links to everything that I talked about in this video down in the description, so go check out all this awesome stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!